Alrighty, so news of the week episode on this Thursday afternoon, and yes, I did get a new haircut, and no, that's not the reason why I delay this video to a date because I was relatively busy last night. But anyhow, we got a lot of news to talk about. In fact, we had a lot of signings and a lot of transfer rumors as we're getting closer and closer to the regular season. In fact, at the time of this recording today, I just realized it's February. So yeah, we're now down to just a couple of weeks before the regular season started. Actually, 3 weeks to be exact, because the first game between Inter Miami and RSL will be taking place on February 21st. But either way, the biggest news that came out, actually just came out a couple of hours ago, and that, of course, is FC Dallas. They have officially signed Petar Musa on a club record transfer fee. It looks like is going to be around $10 million plus $3 million on add-on, and that is easily the most that FC Dallas have spent in terms of getting a player. But also, this feels like it's a message to the rest of the Western Conference, and maybe even a message to a lot of these teams that doesn't spend a lot of money, because FC Dallas is a team that's not known to spend a lot of money. So the fact that they just splash out almost $13 million on a guy that, he's been a regular starter in Benfica, and I think he should be a guy that easily could get 10 or 15 plus goal this season, and maybe even could potentially replace Jesus Ferreira too. Because now the question is where exactly is Jesus Ferreira going to play? Is he going to be moving on from this team after this deal, or are we hearing him shifting to the number 10 position as the role that he's going to be playing, and Petar Musa plays in that spot? Which that wouldn't make sense, because then where do you put Alan Velasco in that spot? But either way, this is definitely a big move for Dallas, and like I said about how the fact that there's also a message sent to those teams that doesn't spend a lot. I mean, this just shows you that if you have a team that doesn't spend a lot, but if your owners finally decided that, yeah, I think it's time to basically join the rest of the pack, and the MLS 4.0 kind of mindset of we got to spend big and splash out big in terms of getting these good players. Now, obviously, as well as much as you want to do that, you also got to be careful when you try to do that. You don't want to just splash the money on a player that doesn't turns out to be well, because then it can backfire big time, and it can definitely turns out to be a bit of a bust. But I don't think that's going to be the case with Petar Musa. I think he's going to be good for this Dallas team, and I think that might be the missing piece for this Dallas teams to get over the hump that they've been trying to get over for the past couple of years. And then moving on, we got LAFC. So yeah, it feels like this past couple of days, John Forrington probably have finally heard what the fans been demanding, which is signings, because LAFC was very active in terms of the transfer market. In fact, at the time of this recording too, I think they've also just announced another players that they have signed, but I'll talk more about that on Saturday News of the Week episode. But they have announced that they have signed Omar Campos from Santos Laguna in Liga MX, and they also signed Colombian striker Thomas Angel. And for those of you that might know that name, yes, that is actually the son of Juan Pablo Angel, a legendary number 9 that plays for the Red Bulls for a very long time. So now his son is going to be playing in MLS too, and we'll see how he's going to do. I mean, assuming he's probably going to be playing backup role alongside with Denise Bawanga, because Bawanga doesn't seem like he's going anywhere, despite there's been numerous rumors of him going back to France. But getting a new center back in Omar Campos, obviously, I think that's a replacement. Well, actually, that's just add more defensive depth on this team, and we've seen so far center backs coming from Liga MX and coming to MLS. Most of them has been having some really good success, and from what I heard, he seems like he had a really good success doing his time with Santos, and that should really boost LAFC defense even more heading into this season. Now, their crosstown rival, LA Galaxy, also made a major signing, so they have signed Gabriel Peck from Vasco da Gama on a DP contract, though I think this is not really too big of a news, because throughout this offseason, there's been this talks of when exactly they're going to get the signing of Gabriel Peck over. It's kind of similar to the whole Pedro de la Vega situation with Seattle, where they spent the whole off season trying to get that over the line, and there was some complication, but they finally got it over the line in case. And it's kind of interesting that just a couple of days after Seattle finally got that signing over the line, now the Galaxy finally does it too. So yeah, that should be very interesting to see how he's going to do. I mean, they're hoping that he's gonna be a lethal attacker, because of the fact that there's been a lot of people have said that he's a very promising player. And then Inter Miami have announced that they have traded Chris McVeigh to DC United in exchange for a 2024 international spot, and depend on performance wise, they could also get 100,000 general allocation money that is Inter Miami. And this is going to be an interesting one because Chris McVeigh is kind of a depth guy at Inter Miami, and part of that Inter Miami backline that, yeah, it wasn't good last season, and I have a feeling it's probably not going to be good either heading into this season, judging by some of the preseason resort. In fact, just a recent preseason resort that we saw before. But yeah, I think overall, I think this is probably just for depth reason for DC, and that again you always get guys that might not be considered to be a starter caliber, but more useful utility piece, and you give up just only internationals. But I think it's a good deal. I mean, there's always the uh low risk high reward situation, and I feel like that's probably going to be the case. And then the Chicago Fire have announced that they have signed Chase Gasper from the Houston Dynamo. Remember Chase Gasper of how good he was with Minnesota in his first two seasons? I mean, I surely do remember that, and I've been keeping an eye on see how his career has gone on after he depart Minnesota. But yeah, it hasn't gone well whatsoever. I mean, he's been a castaway at the Galaxy, and now he's gonna and then he of course going to Houston Dynamo where he was kind of a castaway. And now he's joining the Chicago Fire, what maybe could be his last chance in terms of how Rich's MLS career. I mean, I still can't believe how Chase Gasper was so great for this team to a point where he actually got himself playing into the national team because of it. But I feel like ever since that moment, that was kind of the peak of his career, and that's I think is another example of how it seems like we have seen nowadays where players decide to join the national team or getting called up by the national team. That is because you can't just simply join the U.S. men's national team. It feels like that's kind of like the peak of the career, and after that, we have seen players that have hit a very steep decline, and unfortunately, Chase Gasper is an example of it. I mean, what a great player he was with Minnesota, and the fact that they got something in return out of that deal, it just feels like it's a steal for Minnesota. The way that they got some return out of that, despite the fact that there was definitely sign that during his last season with the Loons, there was that shown a decline in his quality. And then the Vancouver Whitecaps, they have announced that they have signed Norwegian defender Brim Inget Utvik. First of all, that is an awesome name. I've talked about some awesome name in MLS. Brion Inget Utvik is definitely going to be going up to it, especially with Scandinavian name. I know there's some really cool Scandinavian out there in MLS, but yeah, it's a good signing in terms of adding some more depth. I mean, defense for the Whitecaps are already relatively solid with the likes of Vesinovic and Blackman anchoring the back line, but it doesn't hurt to add some more depth into it, and I think this will be a good depth piece, at least in the defense for the Vancouver Whitecaps. And then Charlotte FC have announced that they have signed David Bingham of a free agency. So again, there's another player, David Bingham. I remember he was such a great player for the Quakes, and then obviously he decided to join the enemy, and I think ever since that his career has never been the same. I mean, he's been bouncing around the league, and I think he's still a decent backup goalkeeper. But it's also kind of interesting that he decided to go to Charlotte, and specifically Charlotte actually decided to sign him because they've already are pretty good in terms of the goalkeeping depth chart. Bring David Bingham, that means that they have now got four goalkeepers on their rosters, and I'm pretty sure when you're an MLS team, you don't really need to have four goalkeeper in that goalkeeping roster spot. But we shall see how he is going to do. I'm assuming he's probably going to be a backup for Christian Kalina, but I also feel very bad for George Marks because I thought George Marks during his limited time that he's played with Charlotte, he has shown some potential, and now he's basically back being third straight. I mean, because not David Beckham, David Bingham. Got the wrong name there for a second. I don't think David Bingham will get anywhere close to the David Beckham kind of level. We'll see, but yeah, now he is going to be, of course, joining free agency with Charlotte, and again, he's back backup goalkeeper, but I won't be surprised he might be also bouncing around the league because of it. And then Montreal have decided to acquire Bulgarian midfielder Dominik Yankov. Now, I have no idea how this guy is. There wasn't really a lot of report of how he is. So I'm just gonna say that we'll see how this, of course, is going to turn out. There isn't really a lot of Bulgarian player in MLS, and usually when we do see Bulgarian player come to MLS, yeah, they don't really make too much of an impact to a team. And again, no pun intended. Whenever talked about Montreal, but yeah, it will be interesting to see how this signing is going to go. And the same goes with the next signing, the Colorado Rapids signing Senegalese midfielder Lemmy Diak, and again, not really too much I know about this signing. Maybe just for depth reason for this Rapids team that all of a sudden, this Rapids team with all the move that they have made, there could be a case that they, of course, could get themselves off of the foot of the Western Conference and maybe even be a competitive team in the Western Conference. The big question I will still say about the Rapids is who's going to be the guy that scored the goals for them, because they still don't really have a legitimate goal scorer on this team, despite making all these moves during this winter transfer window. And then Charlotte FC have announced that they have loaned Kirill Schwadersky to Hellas Verona with an option to buy. So this is not a big surprise because Kirill Schwadersky have been mentioning that he wants to move back to Europe, and it seems like that, of course, is the case. But that's a bit of a loss for Charlotte because Kirill Schwadersky, say what you say about him, and how some Charlotte fans say that he didn't live up to his potential. I do think that he did. When you look at the numbers that he put, I mean, yes, maybe not worth DP amount of money, but as the season goes along and doing his 2 season with Charlotte, it's been relatively successful. I mean, the numbers have been there. He's been by far the most lethal attacker for the Charlotte team, and it's going to be interesting to see how they replace him heading into this upcoming season. And then St. Louis City have announced that they have signed head coach Bradley Carnell to a contract extension. This is not a big surprise because if it wasn't for Pat Nolan winning the Supporter Shield last year, Bradley Carnell definitely would be in contention of Coach of the Year. I mean, getting a team that came into the league and getting them first in the Western Conference while playing that energy drink kind of soccer and kind of that finding an identity of an expansion team straight off the bat. Very unprecedented. We have never seen this happen before, and all credit has to do with what Bradley Carnell has done to this Louis team. And then moving on in terms of the next news, and now we're going to talk about some transfer rumors. And I think the biggest talking point right now in the transfer rumor mill in MLS is the whole Duncan McGuire transfer saga. So this has been kind of crazy of what we have seen in the past couple of days. In fact, if I would have done this video yesterday, I would have not known today that there are now new reports saying that he is actually having a medical with Blackburn Rovers. And this is after yesterday when Tom Bogert basically reported that the deal is off as he was flying to England. So, yeah, it's very interesting to see how this is going on. And it's also kind of more interesting to see that, Orlando City decided to move on with Duncan McGuire. In fact, I think in the next video I'll be talking about Orlando City in the season preview. That's gonna be something I'll talk about throughout that season preview, because again, this is a guy that I feel like he probably should have just stayed another season with Orlando and continue to have a great season. I mean, he had that one breakout season, but still, you want to maybe have another season, see how it's going to turn out. And it just seems like Orlando City, they cannot not get any of these championship team to not decided to get sell them off to them once one of their strikers started to do well. I mean, it feels like it's a Daryl DK situation 2.0 again, but even then, in terms of the whole transfer saga, it will be very interesting to see when it's officially made official that the Blackburn Rovers actually decided to sign him outright. Because I've also heard that Sheffield Wednesday was another team that is linked to trying to get Duncan McGuire, and that again, it'll be interesting to see how it's going to be. And also, if they do decide to move on from Duncan McGuire, that is a huge loss to that attack, and that really kind of started to lower the ceiling a little bit of Orlando City, especially when they don't really have a replacement for him, at least as we speak. And then Florentina is linked with a 25 million pound move for Atlanta United star Thiago Almada. Now, this actually was a bit of an old news because this has happened been a couple of days ago on Sunday, and we haven't heard anything besides that. Either way, it feels like Atlanta is going to keep Thiago Almada at least until the summer transfer window, because as much as there are been some big offer for their star player to do, I think Atlanta probably feel like they should just hold on for Thiago Almada at least until the summer transfer window, because we know in the summer transfer window that's when the big money move does happen in Europe. But also, that is where it could be complicated if you're an MLS team because you're in the middle of the season, and if you're doing well, I mean, I'm pretty sure Atlanta is not going to let go of Thiago Mata if Thiago Mata has an MVP season. I mean, it's not unprecedented. We have seen some great players that perform well and then they leave in the middle of the season, but pretty sure in terms of how the season goes, it's kind of an awkward timing for MLS teams to let go of their big name player during the summer, and we'll see whether that is the case. Because again, I feel like in the summer we're gonna get more transfer rumor talk involving Thiago Mata, and if Thiago Mata is gonna be moving on to Atlanta United, it seems like Atlanta might have had a replacement, and I'm pretty sure Atlanta fans know this name truly in heart. It's Miguel Almiron. So it seems like we talked about how he's looking to try to go to Saudi Arabia, but now he says he doesn't want to do that. Instead, he thinks that long term you want to go back to Atlanta United. And imagine if Miguel Almiron comes back to Atlanta United. You have no idea how much of an ovation he's gonna get if he decided to come back to Atlanta. Like between him and Joseph Martinez are pretty much the two legend in Atlanta United. In fact, if Atlanta eventually does start to build a statue outside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, along with the other great Atlanta Falcons player out there, Miguel Almiron and Joseph Martinez would definitely be on that list. Maybe even Tata Martino too, considering that he was a mastermind of guiding Atlanta to their first ever MLS Cup in 2018. But yeah, if that is the case, that is a huge boost. I mean, can you imagine you going from Thiago Almada to going back to Miguel Almiron? It feels like we're back to reverse in terms of the timeline of Atlanta United and their star number 10. But yeah, there could be a case that it could happen, and especially as I mentioned, there's another well-known player that a team decided to sell him off a couple of years ago, and now it seems like he's going to be back in MLS. But moving on, so Federico Bernardeschi, it seems like he is actually going to be staying with Toronto FC after numerous Italian clubs reject his move. So this is not a big surprise, consider I'm pretty sure these Italian clubs probably saw what happened with TFC last season and with Bernardeschi and his whole diva kind of mentality in the locker room. Yeah, they basically said no to that, and this is also where for Toronto, as I said, coming into this season, or at least in the moving for a series episode, a lot of people, including myself, maybe have said that I'll be surprised if both Bernardeschi and Insigne return heading into next year, but it feels like that's going to be the case because there hasn't been any rumors of Insigne potentially leaving to Toronto, and the same goes for Bernardeschi. And mind you, both of them are still under contract. I mean, despite the fact that people have said one of them is going to go out, the only way they can move on from them is decide to transfer to another team, or worse, decide to terminate their contract, which is something that I'm pretty sure Toronto does not want to do after spending that much money on both of these Italian players. So yeah, there could be a case that both Bernardeschi and Insigne is gonna stay together, and who knows? I mean, I feel like with this beef that is going on between both of those guys, and also with Toronto, it's gonna be interesting to see how that's gonna be be settled because they're gonna have to settle this beef all together, knowing that they're kind of sitting this hell of still being contract with Toronto, despite the fact that they don't want to play for Toronto FC and want to move on from another team. And then the Chicago Fire. So it seems like Chicago have saw what Dallas did, and they decided to say, "Hold my beer," because they're reported to now sign a Ghent striker called Hugo Creepers. I think that's how you say it, for $12 million. So yeah, again, we started to see a lot of MLS teams decide to splash a lot of money, especially on strikers, with double-digit amount. Now, again, like I said, that as much as that is a good thing, and that kind of sends a message to the rest of the league that you're being ambitious. You also want to make sure that you don't get a guy that you spent a lot of money and it turns out to be a huge bust. And in the case of Hugo's, not really a bigger name compared to what Petar Musa is, and that coming from Genk, a team that has been respectable in the Belgium league. It'll be interesting to see how he is going to do, and especially again this Fire team, they've been desperate to try to get a decent number nine. I mean, they already spent a big on a number nine, but before in Kasper Shabilko, and yeah, that did not go so well for them. So yeah, we'll see whether this move does go over the line. And then moving on to the next news, so Eduardo Atuesta, it seems like he is going to be going back to LAFC. In fact, as I'm speaking, I think the deal might have been completed after his loan with Palmeiras has ended, and that is a huge boost to this LAFC team because I remember when Atuesta was with this LAFC team, especially the fact that he's a free kick specialist. I think that's a huge boost to this LAFC team and in this midfield, and of course it is the case, and indeed it is probably now the case. Yeah, that's a huge signing for this LAFC team. See, LAFC fans, you had nothing to worry about. I mean, as much as the panic level at it was at an all-time high about a week and a half ago about this team not signing everybody, all of a sudden now things are starting to moving, and that John Thornton probably have heard the panic from the fan base, and he is definitely cooking in terms of all the moves that they've been making. And one of those moves that they could still add is that they're looking to sign Venezuelan international winger David Martinez. Now, from what I heard, is that this is a guy that could be the next big thing in South America and a very talented player in Venezuela. I wouldn't say that I would compare him to the other Venezuelan that is well known in this league in Joseph Martinez, and of course they don't play in the same position. But if they do sign him, this could be a big signing for this LAFC team, and we'll see if that, of course, is the case. And then the Quakes, they are report to sign Bodo striker Ama Pellegrino. From what I heard, is that he's actually finished as the top goal scored in the Norwegian League last season, and not to mention he's also a guy that knows to score bangers. And I think that's kind of checks out for the San Jose Earthquakes because the Quakes last season, man, they probably are leading the league last season in terms of scoring bangers goal because they've scored a lot of great goals last season. I mean, Miguel Trieco probably was at the center of it. It feels like every single game he was scoring bangers left and right. So why not bring a guy that also scored bangers in Pellegrino, but most importantly, definitely add more help to that attack that was definitely lackluster last season. Now, one thing that I am a little concerned is the fact that he is 33 years old, and when you have a number nine that is started to approach the 30s, the production definitely start to drop. But from what I also heard is that he's kind of a bit of a late bloomer, so yeah, we'll see if they do get this over the line. If they do get this over the line, yeah, I think Jeremy Abosi has some competition ahead of him. And then DC United is reported to reach a deal with Finnish international Matti Patola. Now, I think this is a move that I've mentioned before, and I won't be surprised in a bit that they're gonna eventually reach this as an agreement. And then Orlando City is report to sign Slovenian center back David Berkelo from Viking FK. Now, if that is the case, that means that they have two good Scandinavian player at their center back position. And I know David Berkelo is not Scandinavian. I'm well aware that Slovenia is nowhere near the Scandinavian region. But if you join a club that is called Viking FK, you might as well just call yourself Scandinavian. I mean, I'm pretty sure that maybe is how is the case. But either way, this is clearly a replacement for Antonio Carlos, and that this will be interesting to see whether if it will work out. I mean, the shoes and the hole that Antonio Carlos left to this Orlando City team is just as big as if they eventually gonna lose Duncan McGuire this offseason. So no pressure, David Berkelo, in terms of how he's going to do fill in the big shoes that Antonio Carlos had in that back line. And then Nottingham Forest, they're looking to cut David Origi loan short, as he of course is currently on loan with Nottingham Forest with AC Milan, so he can basically join LAFC. Now, obviously, I don't know if this move is going to happen because they've just recently got Thomas Angel, so this kind of doesn't make sense that they decide to get another striker in it, unless they want to booster that depth in the number 9 position too. But it also won't be surprising considering we have seen teams that decide to get some known names in Europe, and David Origi might not be a household name, but he's a household name in terms of when big games happen. He always tends to score big goals in big games, and while he hasn't really been that good the last couple of years. We'll see whether if this of course is true of him going to LAFC. And then lastly, RSO is in negotiation with Greek left back Alexandros Katranes. Now, this is another guy that I don't know too much about, but obviously I think RSL fans are happy that at least they're in the conversation of potentially signing players because they've been very quiet this off season in terms of signing players, and this is after they lost some key players on their roster in Savarino and oh god, who was the other player? Amir Krylik is another player that I now remember that left to join the Vancouver Whitecaps, and the fact that they haven't replaced both of those guys, yeah, there's definitely some question and maybe some concern if you're an RSL fans about this upcoming season. But now moving on, in terms of talking about news that is not related to transfer reports. So it was announced that Copa America ticket could be on sale at the end of February. Now, originally they said that it was January that they're going to release the tickets, but now it seems like it's going to be pushed back to the end of February. And it feels like tickets is going to be released depending on what the venue primary ticket selling sources. You know, some stadium they're gonna sell tickets on SeatGeek. Some stadium is gonna sell tickets on Ticketmaster. And I've always said that I prefer SeatGeeks over Ticketmaster because Ticketmaster is I think if you want to talk about the most hated ticket selling company in the U.S. right now and maybe in the world right now. Ticketmaster is right at the top of the list, and it sucks because Ticketmaster is the most well known and is the biggest in terms of these ticket selling website. But I can see why a lot of people said that they've been very frustrated with Ticketmaster, especially the outrageous fees that they charge. Now, that's not saying that SeatGeeks don't do the same thing, but at least SeatGeeks they don't charge as big of an outrageous fee as what we see with Ticketmaster. But unfortunately, as I said, while there are some venue that's going to use SeatGeeks, majority of the venue is going to use Ticketmaster, and this is where again, you see those $200 tickets for these Copa America games, and that's even if it's going to be $200. I have a feeling it's going to be very expensive, and if you want to watch this, you gotta have to pay a pretty penny for it. But now you add on top of the fees that Ticketmaster slam at you, and all of a sudden, I mean, this is why in the last edition in 2016 there was a lot of empty seats in some of the stadium, mainly because tickets were just way too high when that tournament is, and it was. I mean, some of the tickets were like $200 $300, and that was in 2016. That is, I can't imagine how this is going to be now in 2024, and that this is also where there could be. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some Copa America game where there's going to be empty seats, especially in some of these lesser known team when you don't have like the big country like Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and and Uruguay in it. Don't be surprised. There's going to be some empty seats in it because again, you don't charge somebody like $500 to watch the game between Bolivia and Jamaica. That's not gonna draw a lot of crowd. And then MLS 360 have now available in Spanish. As last year we saw the MLS 360 being in English, but now it looks like there's a Spanish version with broadcaster Tony Chin, Miguel Gallardo, and then former Timbers head coach Giovanni Savarese will be on that broadcast role. So I was kind of wondering if was going to get another opportunity in MLS, and I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't. But it seems like now that he's joining the broadcast role, so yeah, that should be interesting to see, and it's good definitely for a lot of those Spanish speaking people that subscribe to Apple TV Season Pass that they now can actually watch the Spanish version of that too. And then Inter Miami have announced that they have released their new 2024 home kit and also decided to expand Drive Pink Stadium to about 21,500. And this is not a big surprise because the demand for tickets to see Messi and friends at Pink Stadium is still at an all-time high. But in terms of their new home kit, unfortunately, I'm kind of disappointed to show you, but this is the new home kit that they've been wearing. And by the way, I know this says footy headlines, but it's pretty much now confirmed that that is the new home kit that they're wearing. And the reason why I say it's disappointing is because that home kit looks exactly like the same as the one from a couple years ago. And I would say this one is probably even worse because I really don't like the way that they kind of align everything in the middle. I never understand why teams decided to do that. It doesn't really kind of looks well. Although I will say that at least the Royal Caribbean logo, it kind of looks a little bit better compared to what they decided to do with the black kit or the La Noche kit that they have in that kit when they had the Royal Caribbean logo. It looked just so out of place. But still, it just feels like it's lazy designing, and this is also a reason why a lot of people are hating on Adidas, and why there's always this conflicted relationship between MLS fans and Adidas the fact that Adidas are lazy, and that this is an example of it, because all they did was just move everything to the middle, and they kept the same design. I mean, if you're going to get an Inter Miami kit and get a Messi jersey, just get one with the old one, because that one might be on a bit of a discount, and it's pretty much just the same design as the new one that they have. Now, speaking of kit release, another thing I didn't mention here on the board is that there are some teams that have leaked their kit. Obviously, we know all about it with EA accidentally released all the leaks for all the jerseys for MLS team in their video game in EAFC 24. But also there are some teams that have leaking it on Foodie headlines, and one of my favorite thing is that the Chicago Fire actually tweeted it out about that leaks from Footy headlines. And it was kind of an interesting tweet where they said that, yeah, they are aware of this leak, and that they've also said that, well, they like Footy headlines. They also kind of burned them and saying, yeah, that looks nothing like what we're going to release for this upcoming season. So yeah, that's the first time I've seen Footy headlines actually got the attention of MLS team, because that's always a website I've used to look at potential leak MLS jersey, or even MLS jersey that is being released by their respective team. With that being said, that is pretty much it in terms of this News of the Week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news that I've just mentioned, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, and I have a feeling there's going to be some, because I'm recording this on early Thursday afternoon, and that I won't be surprised there's going to be more news as we go into the afternoon and going into the evening. But I'll, of course, talk more about that in the Saturday News of the Week episode. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.